our timelines?
Yeah, I find those are very useful thoughts. But at times I was told, the last time I knew about management, use the latent potential that you already have. The National Cereals and Produce Board is still got the huge potential to store especially maize. The second issue I wanted to respond to is guaranteeing minimum returns does not have to come at the tail end of all these logistical challenges. It has to come at the beginning of planting season, so that any farmer putting his money into the soil knows that at the end of the season, the lowest price that I can get from this maize is going to be so much. That is what I understand by GMR, the way it was used in the past, the way it is used internationally, and the way it ought to be used here in Kenya. Finally, is the question of when to fund. Yes, I agree with the Kenya Kwanza proposal that you need to fund production. But you must also target production on areas where you run a deficit in terms of what you can domestically produce. And that can be done by improving. I know the agriculture sector was devolved, but it was not devolved in terms of policy and policy recall. I still expect the Ministry of Agriculture to be able to transcend the country and ensure that it is able to monitor the pulse rate of the nation through food production. And finally, I've been following what the senator has been doing, plus other senators. So I'm not oblivious of that, but I'm trying to give them what I know I may not have done, but it ought to be done now, given the experience that I have.
All right. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, allow me to...
I think let's just comment Honorable Kero, because we haven't seen him on the streets with a sofria on his head. I know he's a maize farmer. So what I wanted to say is that guaranteed minimum return comes from productivity, not being on the street.
All right, let's see then if also moving from speaking to public barazas and sitting with other members of parliament would be fruitful. As you have all mentioned, there are other ways to do things. We have a story coverage by our own political reporter, Giverson Maina, on Monday, where we have vividly seen the Azimio chief, on behalf of Azimio Coalition, give a number of fresh demands and ultimatums. First, 30 days was the day they gave to conclude the talks if they commence. And also 48 hours then, which are lapsing today in what they term as, you know, some sort of seriousness. But let's listen to this story that will give us more details for this conversation.
Azimio Chief Raila Odinga has warned of possible return of weekly demos in Nairobi if the President William Ruto's Kenya Kwanza coalition does not show seriousness in the bipartisan talks by this coming Wednesday. The opposition leader saying they chose to return to the negotiation table after a call was made by the president, but there has been no signal of goodwill so far.
We have given them today and tomorrow. We have said that the talks must start in earnest on Wednesday. And if their delegation is not ready by Wednesday, we will treat that gentleman's agreement as cancelled. And we will then now explore other options available to us as Azimio.
This comes even as the Bipartisan Talks Committee, co-chaired by Rarieda MP Otiende Amolo and the Raka legislator George Murugara, is set to resume sittings tomorrow.
Kenya Kwanza had approached us and said that they were ready now for talks and that we are going to remove Mr. Kenan, whom they had put in as among one of their delegates. But we knew that the real reason why they were doing it was because they were expecting the visitors were coming into town. And they did not want demonstrations at that time.
The former premier giving the government side a two-day ultimatum for what he termed as excuses and frequent postponements of the bipartisan engagements.
We did act in good faith ourselves because they said they were serious. Now we are seeing signs of reluctance. We're seeing signs of reluctance. Now all members of the other side are not available. They don't have a quorum to begin the discussions and so on.
The two sides have, however, found difficulties in establishing the agenda of the talks, with Azimio demanding inclusion of IBC servers as an agenda, while Kenya Kwanza maintains that talks can only be centered on creation of the electoral body. The Raila Odinga faction also insisting that talks must remain outside Parliament, with their counterparts from the Kenya Kwanza side maintaining they'll only engage on talks within Parliament.
When Kenyans voted, Azimio had a majority in both houses. However, Kenya Kwanza has proceeded to buy members of Parliament without following the laid down procedures and the law.
It now remains to be seen whether Tuesday's talks will reach a meaningful stage. Giverson Minor, K24, Nairobi.
Now, just doing a follow-up, that report was done on Monday and the 48 hours have lapsed today. When I look at the papers, however, Kenya Kwanza has said to Azimio they will not be held to ransom over talks today. Let me start with Honorable Kiro on this one. What is the contention? What could be the problem at this point in time?
Well, the last time I knew about issues of management, especially when it comes to dialogue, is that it takes a number of steps of any dialogue. If we just sat down and we said everything is okay, we would be lying to each other. So I strongly believe that each side must be able to give a raft of their issues. Some of the issues that we discuss may be short-term, and that short-term could be administrative, like the cost of living. I don't think we need even to discuss that, because the current administration knows that is their job, and they ought to do it without even us sitting down. Some are short-term, like issues of IBC, that's short-term, mid-term. Then the long-term is to audit the Constitution, to ask ourselves, does it serve us the way we indented in 2010? Or does it have any areas that we can improve, any areas we can add, any areas we can adjust? Or are we happy with it? Because an audit, and I want to make that clear, does not necessarily mean that there is any fault on the current Constitution. All right. But it is to check and see whether it reflects the aspirations of Kenyans. That is the way I look at it. And my take is that this thing has been preempted by a number of challenges that took place. From the beginning of time, I remember our side had 177 members of parliament allied to Azimio. Today, it is below that. Why? There has been a consistent emasculation of political parties in terms of building a monolithic party under the guise of UDA getting stronger. I do agree with the president that we need to build strong and robust political parties, but you cannot build political parties at the expense of other political entities by eating into them. You need to be more attractive so that those of us who are in Azimio feel attracted to the thinking, the aspirations, and the style of UDA or Kenya Kwanza, so that we move in and the people will move in. But you cannot do by emasculation. That is an old style. That is what used to happen, and that is what precipitated one-party state, a situation we do not want to visit again. As Kenyans.
Honorable Kira, I'm coming back to you, gentlemen. Speaking of exploring other available options available to Azimio if their ultimatums are not met, could we please understand these other options besides demonstrations?
Well, demonstration is one of the options. There could also be other options where we can petition Parliament, where we can petition the presidency, where we can petition other institutions or entities, local or international, for purposes of ensuring that we are heard. I've said this administration is not a listening administration. It has the mistaken notion that they know ab initio. No institution, no individual, no entity has the capacity to say they know everything. Even when you do research at whatever level, whether it's PhD, masters, you must identify areas of further research for other people to undertake, because you have limitation in terms of capacity, in terms of time, and also in terms of resources. They should also know they have also a limitation. After all, they are human.
All right, you also have limitations. After all, you're human. Honorable, the vocal Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei hit back to the opposition, accusing them of having a hidden agenda. And so far, also, if you heard from our report, the contention is on the agenda. He's mentioned IEBC as a short term, but Kenya Kwanza is saying, you know, there are certain issues that cannot come to the table. What would you say at this point in time is the concern by Kenya Kwanza?
Let me start by saying that I'm not one of the proponents of these talks.
Yes, from the 14 minutes.
From the word go.
Yes.
I do agree that we have a constitution that has structures that makes us run the country in a structured way. However, having said that, I think the problem we, the Kenya Kwanza government, are doing, we are stopping at every barking dog. And we are losing it on that one. We know that Raila Amolo Odinga is known for one thing, blackmailing everybody on the government. He's successfully done it 4 times, and he does not even want he's not actually interested in what we are going to do, constitutional amendments or constitutional audit or anything like that, because we can be able to do that if we wanted without having to go on the street. What he's trying to do is already to take advantage of the economic situation that we're finding ourselves in, go on the streets and make sure that people throw stones. Others will even take advantage to steal from other people. And I do not think that anybody who is actually well versed with the democratic processes will say this is the right way to go. I'm asking myself, why should we need the opposition to come and tell us as the government this is what we should do? Why do we even need these bipartisan talks? We are listening to one old man who I think cannot admit that the elections are over, that he lost, and let us learn it for the next 5 years until the next general elections, when he can come and say this is where you as the government has failed, and that is why I'm contesting against you, and maybe if he will be like, then win against us. I think, and this is totally insincere, if you look at the timing on when the demonstrations were called, it was 6 months after election, everybody having gone back to their business. And it was not until we raised the issue of people having not complied with the taxation. It was not until we raised the issues of money that was siphoned out the last couple of days before the election. It was not until we started saying about fighting the cartels that have been involved in tea, milk and coffee industry. It was not until we raised those issues that the issue of demonstration came in. And I can tell you, to be sincere, this is about a few people, a few individuals protecting their own interest. It has got nothing to do with Kenyans. It has nothing. If we would bring down the cost of living by going on the streets and throwing stores and burning cars and stealing people's property, I would lead my family to do that, because I'm so desperate to bring the cost of living down. And I think it is totally insincere from the side of the opposition to come on the deck and say, we have the agenda, this is set your agenda. I mean, we are in the government. They are the minority. We have the platform. What the president said, let us strengthen for future. Let us strengthen the office of the official opposition. But right now we have the majority, we have the minority. And at the end of the day, we must also look at it the way it is. You have a right as a parliamentarian to associate yourself with any side of the political divide that you may feel that is addressing your interest. As it is, and Dr. will tell you, as Emio lost, especially in our area, nobody would want to be associated with it. The people in Jubilee closing over to the government is for their own good, because if they don't, they're finished.
Let me come back to you. Dr. Kidero, following what's going on with the bipartisan talks, let's just hear your personal opinion on this matter. Now, analysts are terming this as constant shifting of the goalposts by the Azimio coalition. And Azimio is, you know, blaming Kenya Kwanza for what they call delayed tactics. What are your thoughts on this matter?
First of all, I mean, I would like to pay fairly glowing tributes to the two leaders, I mean, who are the Dr. Samuel Ruto, who won the presidential elections in 2022, and Raila Amolo Odinga, who lost marginally. I would like to express my appreciation that to allow for bipartisan talks, they put Kenya first. Yes. Kenya Kwanza. They put Kenya first and the future of this country first. And like every other discussions at the very beginning until the issues are completely distilled, there's what you call dynamic tension where people try to find their levels. And I think that's the process where we are at currently, where vurute ni kuvurute. And I believe things are going to settle and issues are going to be distilled, and we are going to have a very, very fruitful discussion. I mean, Azimio made a demand that K9 be removed, and Kenya Kwanza removed K9, and I thought that was the only stickling issue. And I believe that this discussion is going to go on. But I think as leaders, what must stop is that threats and intimidation, that if you don't do this, we are going to go to the streets. If you don't do this, we will go to the streets. I think, I mean, as leaders, we are servants of the people, and what we need to do is what will benefit this country in the long term. Nobody has monopoly of ideas or monopoly, and nobody has no monopoly of violence as well. Because, I mean, if you think you can be violent, the rest of people can be violent as well, and that won't take this country anywhere. I've heard Honorable Raila talk about about political hygiene, where members have been crossing. I think the first thing is that Azimio, including ODM, need to ask themselves that why is it that people are crossing from, and it's not the first time, because even before the elections, a senator here was in Azimio before, but of course after examining himself and looking at the future because they were together with...
No, I was never in Azimio. I was in UDA. He closed over.
Yeah, so in UDA, sorry, yes. For that. When you have children and your children start rebelling, rather than blame your children or where they're going to, you need to ask yourself, why are my children? You need to go through what you call a self-audit and a self-examination. And we've seen this happen with the Azimio from right before elections and even after elections. And what causes this rebellion is normally blatant arrogance and exploitation of what one would call perceived desperation on the exploited and perceived strength of the exploiters, not knowing or not taking into account that the people you're being arrogant to, or the people you think you are exploiting, both materially, emotionally, and psychologically, have choices and freedom of will on what is not only good for them, but what is good for their people. Right. So, Azimio has been blatantly, arrogantly exploiting and mistreating some of their members. And if their members find choice and refuge in UDA because the vision and policies of UDA are consistent and in line with what they want to deliver, Azimio has itself to blame. They should not blame the government. All right,
let me just hear from Honorable Kirwa. I only have 3 minutes or so to close the show. Time goes very fast, gentlemen. Honorable Kirwa, your response to this, because the Kenyan is hoping that this would be a solution. We need to take our children to school, but Honorable Dr. Kidero is saying leaders should stop threats. Honorable Wamatinga saying this is, you know, at most blackmail, if anything is to go by. What, in your defense, would you say? And I know you speak for yourself, but also we understand that you are in the Azimio coalition.
Yeah, I speak for myself, and I like their thoughts because their thoughts are pure. It's only that they do not paste it on the background where they come from, where before even the current president was sworn in, he had taken 26 members of UDM to his side under the political party emasculation. That, as a student of politics, I will not admit, I will not accept, because political parties must be entities that must stand the test of time. By emasculating them, you are not actually making yourself attractive. At the end of the period of 5 years, some of those guys will run away. The other issue is there is this notion of Kenyans not willing to pay taxes. So we create two Kenyans, tax evaders and taxpayers, and we make it a political issue, and we link it to dynasties. If there is anybody who has not paid taxes, they should be arrested. We do not want to hear some of these tax evaders. If they are there in this town, they should be arrested. But we cannot make the whole country suffer because of perceived non-payment of taxes by certain individuals in our midst. The third issue, and I want to agree with Dr. Kidero, grandstanding and political posturing is something that should be a thing of the past. Posturing, like the Nandi senator saying that nothing will be amended on the finance bill, that is, to say the least, the height of arrogance. And it should not be done when we know constitutionally there is what we call public participation. And the ideas of the public must be captured in that participation process and be incorporated so that whatever makes sense shall see the light of the day as the final stages of the finance bill. Finally, yes, I want to agree with Dr. Kidero that nobody has the monopoly of violence. It is only the government of the day that has the monopoly of violence. That's why they have been violating our demonstrations. You remember the 20 meetings that we had, the Barasas, there was no violence until they visited violence on us. That is when there was looting, there was violence, and there was burning and damaging of property. What we need to do is to improve our political hygiene. We want to improve our political hygiene, and the only way we can improve is for the government of the day to escort us the way South Africans escorted Malema. And at the end of the day, everything was okay.
No, I would like to protest. As we conclude, yes. I'd like to protest. That's not my. I'm not concluding as yet. But Honorable Kiron is not. No, it's not true. Who burnt the bus on Ngong Road? Imagine. Yeah. Who burnt the lorry on the southern and the eastern bypass? Right. Who burnt the vehicles in Kisumu and in Migori? It's not the government. It's not the police.
I was talking of tear gassing. We don't have tear gases.
I think I think it is totally important for us to be sincere with one another. And I think Dr. Kirwa, when he says that the government instigates violence, he knows that he's totally insincere. No. When Martha Karua stands up and says it's the Kikuyus who've been hired, you ask yourself, which Kikuyus went to Migori? Which Kikuyus went to Kisumu? I think if we are interested in saving this country and moving forward, then we must start being honest. We must start politics of honest. Dr. Kirwa knows that in ODM, in Azimio, they are totally dishonest and totally arrogant to their members, and that's why they pushed Duro out of the committee. That's why when Sam went and sought a conversation with the president, they were pushed out. We must start talking like Kenyans and being sincere with one another.
I think
I like it.
Allow me to say this,
but they are doing it out of context.
Doctor, allow me. I might not give any of you time.
He's provoking us.
Yes, I think
even though his body language shows he's not even in
body language now.
Yes.
Now, so far, committee co-chair and Rarieda Member of Parliament Otiende Amolo, in a letter dated 7th May, informed members of the committee of our meeting today at the Bomas of Kenya, Nairobi, starting 10 a.m. So our teams will be on location. If there's anything to cover, we'll update you on the same. Honorable Dr. Kidero, Honorable Wamatinga.
We haven't concluded.
Honorable Kirwa, thank you so much for your time. However, I have to for the next show. The interactive lined up shortly. My name is Anki Doris Sambad. This is New Dawn. Until next time, stay woke. Have a good day.